Happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. I hope you are having a fabulous Wednesday and you've had a fabulous week. I hope your tanks are doing awesome. And I personally am sipping on some Chardonnay in my little, it's going to become a staple. Like, I don't have a wine glass anymore, I've got the jar. But I am sipping on Chardonnay. And I've got a very, if you're not part of our groups on Facebook, you have not seen my very cool ocean related, seahorse related pumpkin that I will share with you. We have a couple of birthdays to celebrate, seahorse birthdays, that is, that we'll tell you about. And Holly Ray and I have Holly and Ray with me, and Cheryl couldn't make it again, but she will be back next week. But anyhow, we've all had an extremely stressful day. So if you want to talk seahorses, we are here for you as always. But ask your questions soon because if we're just chatting, it might be a short stream because I won't even go into the details of my day. It's just been stressful. We're still here for you. Of course, we're always here on Wednesdays. But if we don't see questions, it might be over in an hour instead of two tonight. Anyhow, Holly, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. it's been a busy day. This is my busy season at work, but Wednesday is the Seahorses Day. So today I was busy with them. It's the teenies' birthday today. They all turned 3 years old today. So celebrating that. And I had one thing that made my day busy. I had the skimmer in my display tank sump decided to stop working. The motor wasn't working.
Oh
and
no.
I've and I've never cleaned it. Honestly, I've been afraid to because it involves taking the thing apart and I'm not that great with that sort of thing. So I had to take the protein skimmer apart today and I ran the pump through hot water and it's working again now. But that put a glitch in my day and put me behind in some things. But it
Wait,
was
wait, Holly, Holly.
Facebook
You said it.
teenies
You said
came up. And I have pictures of them I'll share.
I can't wait to see the sharing of pictures. But you said it was the pump on the skimmer. I'm sorry, I was typing. I didn't hear what
Yes.
you said. Okay, because I recently had a situation. I'm curious. Anybody who's watching or watches later, put it in the comments. Like I know we've talked about this before, but we revisit stuff, right? I forget stuff, and I recently realized that one of my pumps wasn't putting out water the way that it should. And I went and checked, and guess what? It was covered in crap, right? Because I hadn't
Yeah.
checked it in a long time. And we're talking about an all in one, so I can't see the pump. It's like back behind and in a chamber. And it's not like when it's sitting in a sump. And sometimes in your sump, you can't see it either. But I'm just saying, I can't see it. There's no way to easily view it. And so I don't really know. So let me know in the comments like how often you vinegar bath your pumps, because I did that and all of a sudden now my tank is working much better and everything's much more flowy. And I was like, what an idiot I am for forgetting that I needed to, like, do you check them on a regular basis? And like in Holly's case, your skimmer pump, that
Yeah.
just even like it doesn't dawn on me. I think I need to set a calendar or something, like a
Well,
This
it
one,
reminder.
says every 90 days you're supposed to clean it, and I've
Oh,
cleaned it
shit.
never. I've
Yeah.
cleaned it never because it is a pain. And so I didn't do the whole vinegar bath thing. I should, but I don't have a replacement to trade it out. And I don't
Right.
want to leave them without the skimmer. It says you're supposed to soak it for 24 hours and all this stuff. But I ran hot water through it like we do with all the fish pumps and put it back together and it's working fine now.
Right,
But
right. No, and I
I
wasn't
was like, oh no, what a
I
pain.
know.
And I had a feeling it was just that. And sure
Well,
enough, there was crap built up on it and I rinsed it off and it was okay. But
right.
it's
Well, and I
something
would
that's
say,
going to vary again with the tanks, like everything else. There are some
okay.
tanks that are going to need it a lot more frequent than others, and it all depends on what's in the tank, how many, how you feed it. how you clean it, basically. So there is no one automatic time period that you can tell someone when they should be doing this. So it's a case of by experience and by checking over time to see what pattern your tank sets for it, you should get an idea of how often you're going to need to do it. And then make sure you do it.
Totally agree, Ray. But like, I think there should be a like max. Like, if
No.
you learn your tank and you need to do it more often because your tank's dirtier or smaller or whatever. But I think there should be, for instance, Danielle said in our two all-in-ones, which are small, they don't have the sump, they have the back compartments. We do that every 4 to 6 weeks. We notice they are very cruddy. And see, I wish I would have asked you earlier because it's been about a year. I mean, not
I've had
really, but
tanks where that was normal. Take
yeah,
about a year
right.
to get that bad. And I also had tanks where within a month I had to do something about it.
Right. But I also think it wouldn't be a bad thing to do it every month or every 6 weeks, right? So
Well, it's
like
never bad to
it,
do something early.
well, I don't think so. To vinegar bath a pump? No, I don't agree at
No,
all.
that's what I said. It's never bad to do
Oh,
it early.
sorry. Sorry. I thought you said it would be. But yeah, but like Holly said, if you don't have a replacement and there's like supposedly rules, you got to, but you know what? I didn't soak my pump for 24 hours because I did not have a replacement. I'm not prepared. Sorry. Um, but I just soaked it in vinegar, saw the bubbles and the stuff start coming up and out. I ran the pump with vinegar, right? Like let the vinegar go through it and such. Took it apart, used a brush, scrubbed the crap out of it, then dumped all the vinegar and all the crap, added hot water first. I don't know if that's right or not. That's just what I do. I ran the pump with the hot water churning through it, dumped that because that had a bunch of crap in it. Then I do cold water and it's usually clear. And that's what happened this time. And then all of a sudden my tank's all flowy again and wonderful. Danielle, by the way, just side note left field here. I was looking at posts and I think that you're the one that had the beautiful adolescence. And when we get ready to do the breeding/raising seahorses, younger seahorses episode, I really want you to be included and involved. So reach out to me via messenger so that I can touch base with you on that. But back to pumps and what we were talking about, and then back to birthdays. I'm trying to keep track here. Me, squirrel, I see something, I'm off. But yeah, so I know what it's like, Holly, when your pump goes bleh and you just hadn't kept up and it sucks and it's a pain. But you
Yeah, I'm
fixed
like
it.
on a busy day already. I'm like, it's
Right.
delaying stuff that I need to get done. I'm like, oh,
Right.
great. Now I need to deal with this. But
Yeah.
it worked out okay. It wasn't really that bad. And I honestly, it's been 3 years at least.
Wow. And
Yeah.
Ray, you said a skimmer down for a day or two is no problem as
No,
long as you go ahead. Go ahead and say what you mean.
basically, you're going to be more conscious or conscious of what you're doing at the time, so that you're not going to aggravate the situation just because you're worried about that skimmer not being in there. So, and 2 days even isn't enough for the tank to all of a sudden get in bad shape. If it's going to go in 2 days, then it's in rough shape to begin with.
Well, I see your point, but still, I'm with Holly being cautious. Well, and in my case, I'm talking about the actual return pumps. I'm not even talking about the skimmer pumps. I'm talking about the return pumps. So I think it's a good note that if you're starting a seahorse tank, have a schedule for cleaning your pumps, is all I'm trying to say. All of them. If you're able to have replacement pumps and have replacement equipment so that if something does go wrong, you're not in a bad situation. As Ray pointed out, you can go a day or two without a skimmer pump or skimmer, but you don't really want to if you can help it. And in my case, like we're talking about the pumps, and so you really can't go a day without those. So just have replacement equipment and make sure you get on a schedule so they don't get so cruddy. The whole reason I realized that mine was meeting it, because I can't see it in the stupid all-in-one, is because the tank started, well, I did what I always do, and I did a major tank cleaning after I got back from vacation, and I did what everybody says, don't do, you idiot, and I do it every time anyways, and I took my rocks out of the tank because they had algae on them, and I scrubbed them. And that always makes the tank cloudy, but then I noticed like the flow wasn't making it dissipate. And so anyway, I just noticed that the flow wasn't working the way it should be. So if you are dealing with a smaller tank with seahorses, especially, get yourself on a schedule. You're clean it so that you're cleaning the pumps or have replacement parts so that you don't, because in a smaller tank, it's more serious. As Ray pointed out earlier, it does depend on the tank, your maintenance schedule. If you have a super clean tank, or if you're doing a natural tank with sand and rock, everything depends on everything. But anytime you're dealing with a smaller tank, you better be anticipating and making sure that errors don't happen, if that makes sense. But Holly, I think we got off on this tangent, and you were trying to go into birthdays. Is that right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So I do have, when we're ready to look, I'll have to find them because I just uploaded them to Facebook. But I have videos of them being born and being babies on this day,
Oh,
3 years ago. So Sandy had a batch of, I want to say it was 163. And that was his biggest batch ever. And they were born, actually, it took 2 days for him to have them all. It was today and tomorrow would be the 25th and the 26th.
yep.
So out of those, I ended up with about 20 survived to become adults. And I sold some and kept some. And Kelly has one of them.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see this, but I literally have her birthday. You probably won't be able to see it. I have her birthday on my calendar. Her birthday was is the 26th, tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So,
Yep. Could have been today, could be tomorrow, because like I said,
right.
they were all born over 2 days, and I don't know
Right.
who's who. So
Sure. Well, why don't you look for the videos and tell me when you're ready? How's that
will
sound?
do. I'll turn
Okay.
off my camera for a minute while I'm looking, so you don't see me looking all weird.
No problem. And
While
I'm
I'm looking.
curious, do any of you guys that are watching, I already know Ray's answer. There's no way he celebrates Seahorse birthdays. But does anybody in the audience, do you guys, keep track of when your seahorses are born? If you're breeding, you probably do, just to come up with, I don't know the word, like not rhythm, but a strategy, I guess, like where they give birth in the morning, and usually it's this many days that they're pregnant, because that can vary. But I'm just curious, if your seahorse has babies, you keep them. Do you celebrate their birthdays? And while we're waiting on Holly, I'll very quickly make myself big. If you're not in our group, you have not seen my pumpkin. And the other weird question for today is, do you do everything in your life related to ocean and seahorses? So my work asked me to make a pumpkin for a pumpkin contest. Guess what I did? If you're in the group, you already know. But of course, I did an ocean pumpkin. If you can't see it very well on this camera, go to the group. You can see close-up pictures. But literally, I'm not an artist, by the way, but I did my best. And I've got an octopus. And I tried to do things that, like will create clients and coworkers asking questions, right? Because I want, I'm always trying to share. So then I have a Gorgonian, and if you look really closely, let me see if I can show you. You see the little pygmy? Okay, I did little pygmy seahorses in the Gorgonian. Then I did, plants with some actual seahorses. You can't see it very well, but the male does have a pouch for any
That's
discussion on that.
awesome.
I know. I mean, I'm proud. I'm not an artist, but I'm proud. And then I've got like a really cool starfish and a crab. And then I've got the Watchman Goby protecting
Uh-huh.
his pistol shrimp from the crab, right? Get away from my buddy, right? We can talk about that relationship. Then I've got the anemone with the clownfish. Talk about that. Really. Anyways, I just had really a lot of fun doing it. I'm just curious if you guys do this type of stuff. If like every time you're asked to do a Halloween pumpkin or whatever, if you end up doing seahorse stuff, because I do.
That's
So
awesome, Kelly. You are an
yeah,
artist. That's pretty
I,
cool.
I'm
You
really
did a
not.
great job.
Thank you. Let me make myself small again. Okay, you
I
ready to
did
share, Holly?
I did find the video, yeah.
All right, go for
So
it.
I will put it on share. There we go. All right. So this is Sandy giving birth.
Okay, here we go.
And you can kind of see inside his pouch, but you don't see anyone come out. This is when he was first going into labor. So if you look, you can see a baby in his pouch, but nobody comes out in the video. I didn't catch them on video.
Isn't that frustrating though? Because I
It,
tried for years and years to get the perfect seahorse giving birth video, and I see them all the time in the groups, and I'm like, I only got like one out of years because they won't do it when you're looking.
right, and then he was also trying to mate with Candy as he was giving birth.
Sure, sure.
And this is the first one born. So he had one, and I popped that one into a fish bowl full of freshly hatched brine shrimp. So you can see it's already swimming in its food, looking for food. And it took him a while before he had more of them. And then next thing you know, I was pulling them out of the filter sock. There was 3 of them in the filter sock. So
So
I
so real
collected
quick,
those, and then it took him hours before he had more. And I can't remember. I want to say it may have even been a work day for me that day.
no, yeah, I was gonna say when you
No.
mentioned that, my
Mhm.
seahorses always gave a warning fry. So and
Mhm.
Ray, do you know what I'm talking about? A warning fry?
Yep.
So what does that mean, Ray?
Well, we consider it a warning fry, but to them, it's just part of the process. Many times they'll a day, even sometimes 2 days ahead. Um, there'll be some that are already ready to come out, and they'll kick them out. And so then once you see that, you take that as the warning and get prepared for the main hatch to come out. But they're not doing it to warn you. It's just part of the
Right.
evolution.
Right. And you did say earlier too that you actually keep track of your you kept track of your fry births.
I kept track of the fry birth and each batch because I'd have a few batches on the go at a time, and I had to keep track of what to start on, when to wean them onto frozen and so on, and also I never sold any before they were a minimum 4 months old, and
Absolutely.
preferably at the 6 month stage. But
Did you did you sell them, Holly? I see you want to share, and I'm getting ready to let you. But Ray, did you sell them when they were a certain age, or more about a certain size?
both,
Yeah.
if
Okay.
they were small and at 6 months, then I still kept it a little bit longer. I wanted to make sure that when I sold a pair, that we weren't going to end up with a female changing into a male afterwards.
Right. Or a slow developer or something
Yeah,
maybe not.
basically that's what. a lot of females were slow, or a lot of males were slow developing, so they look like
Yep.
males. Now, most of the time, if I took the time, I could tell, because if you've got a bunch of them, you can sit there and look. And if you've got a male that hasn't developed, you can tell just by the placement of the anal fin. So when
Yes.
you look at them sideways and you compare them one to another, it's awful hard to tell if you just got one and you're trying to decide if it's male or female. But if you've got ones that you can look at and you can actually see the difference in it, then you can pick off a male that hasn't developed yet just by that forward motion or the forward placement of that anal fin.
So you're saying the male's anal fin will be more this way or
The
more
anal
down
fin
here?
is slightly frontwards because the
Okay.
pouch is going to fill in behind
Push
it.
out. Yep.
Yeah.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. I just wanted you to clarify. That's really cool. Go ahead, Holly. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, so here's a
Oh,
video of the babies. There was more of them at this point. I see from uh my description of it, there was 8 by this time. And there ended up being like 20 something of them born that day. And now I'm reading what I wrote back then. And I remember now I was actually home on this day and the power was out
oh
on
shit.
on top of everything else. So everything was being run on generator for a few days. And so, yeah, the first of them were born on this day. And then the next day, he had the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there was like 23 born the first day, and then there was more born the next day. And I had them in a fish bowl because I had a bunch of different containers. Sandy had different sized batches. Sometimes he had really small batches, and he never looked pregnant to me, so I never knew how many he was going to have, what to
Mm-hmm.
expect. So I just had whatever ready. So he had so many this time, they all ended up in a 10-gallon tank.
Sure.
And I raised them in a 10-gallon until I set up the grow out tank for them.
Awesome. Awesome. And I would say on that note, if you're trying to get into breeding, like when Holly and I tell our stories, we're just hobbyist breeders. Our seahorses had fry and we raised them, right? There are many tricks to make sure that you have bigger batches. And we will get into that when we have Danielle in and we have Cheryl here and Ray, and we can maybe even Dan, and we can talk about breeding because there's so many tricks to like Cheryl has pointed out numerous times that a newer seahorse isn't going to have a good batch. Dan will point out that if you're going to be a true breeder, like commercial level, then you want to get wild caught and actually condition them. Ray would probably not agree with that because he didn't go wild caught, but he would talk about conditioning and what you can do to feed them, to fatten them up, keeping them in certain circumstances so that they give you, you can use temperature, lighting. We'll have a whole episode on breeding. But when Holly and I tell stories, it's usually my seahorse had babies and I raised them. I mean, that's it.
Yeah,
That's
a
the end of it.
few.
So,
The thing is, to raise a lot of them, you need a lot of space.
right.
They need a lot of water volume, space in your house. I don't have the capability of doing that. So,
Well, but when you,
in my realm, it's whoever makes it.
well, and there's nothing wrong with that. And actually that's true. That's true even for
'Cause then
commercial
you gotta
breeders.
find homes for them too. If you have a
Yes.
100 and something babies surviving every few weeks, you gotta know what to do with them.
Please believe that I saw Dan's facility and Seahorse Stores had, like 20 90-gallon tubs that were full of fry. Nobody can do that in a house except for him. But like in my house, the whole reason I was saying that is the first time my seahorses had fry, I had them in a fishbowl because I didn't know what to do. I have a video online where they're in a freaking cup because I didn't know what to do. But once you learn and you're more prepared and you know more about your seahorses, you can be more prepared. Um, and I ended up raising, I think there was 50 that I was able to raise to adults. And then, as Holly pointed out, you're in the position, what the heck do I do with them now? And I kept my favorites. I gave some away. I sold some to a store. I set up a 90-gallon tank that ended up leaking. It's hard to do in a house. Nobody's discouraging anyone from trying to be a hobbyist breeder, because the thing is, you guys know, I'm hoping my seahorses have fry again. I don't have a bigger house at this point. I don't
Yeah.
have more equipment at this point. It's just that I love dealing with the fry. And anyone who comes on the channel and says, "Oh, you're awful because you're not doing the best for all the fry," what do you think happens in the ocean? I mean, the reason they have so many fry is that very few survive, especially in the ocean. If we're giving them special care and trying to raise them, more will survive than they would in the ocean. But Ray, you're saying stuff. Do you want to talk? I see you're saying stuff.
I was saying, what do you mean I was saying stuff?
I don't know. I see you typing
Typing.
messages, and I
Oh,
just want to
what I
make sure.
posted?
Yeah.
I
You're
don't know, I
saying.
posted so much, I don't remember what I posted. And
Oh,
right now
okay.
I'm hitting the
Well,
thing.
one thing he's saying, you need a lot of time because
Oh,
taking
yeah.
care of the fry
When it
is
comes
time.
to fry, if you're going to do it commercially, you have to spend a hell of a lot of time because you're cleaning these containers all the time. And the more batches you have, that increases the time as well. It's not just a case of how many you have in one batch. When you're doing this commercially, you've got
Oh,
to
yeah.
have more than one batch on the go.
Sure.
And
I remember. Well, that's why Seahorse Source stopped business, is because Dan unfortunately, sadly, lost his wife, and she was the one doing all of that, and there
yeah,
was no way he could do it all on his own. So no, I'm totally with you. And Bonnie asked, "Can the fry eat baby brine shrimp right away?"
Yes, you can
Well, wait a
see
minute.
in my video they're already after it and they were just born.
So, can every species of seahorse fry eat baby brine shrimp right away, Ray?
nope, some can't even eat baby brine shrimp.
Which
Uh,
species?
the pelagic species that are smaller generally are going to need something smaller to feed on. Um, that doesn't mean that they're not going to try. The red eye, uh, I've seen them snicking at them right off the bat, but like they were just too small, and the Artemia were too big.
Yep.
So, for me, I used enriched. Oh yeah,
Copepods?
rotifers. I didn't
Rotifers.
when I first started. I didn't have copepods,
Hmm.
and I used enriched rotifers. Everybody told me I couldn't do it, but somehow I sold a lot that couldn't do it.
And you proved them wrong. That's right. Well, and that's the thing, is Holly's not wrong. Erectus seahorses, absolutely, every single one of them should eat baby brine shrimp from the day they're born. I mean, instantly. They also hitch as soon as
Within
they're
hours,
born.
anyway. I've
Within out,
had
yeah,
some that
I
didn't
should say
do it
that.
immediately.
Mhm.
But if you get into the other species like reed eye, I don't know which species. It's pelagic versus benthic. Benthic means they hitch at birth. They're I, I guess they're not ground dwelling. I guess that's not a good. They hitch at birth and they'll eat the baby brine shrimp because they're big enough. Pelagic species tend to swim and not hitch for a couple of weeks, and they need a smaller food. But if you're in the U.S., it's really hard to get reed eye right now, so I wouldn't worry about it. At this point, you're going to be good with baby brine shrimp, and we're just touching on these subjects, guys, because when we do a full-on episode that just is specific about breeding and raising seahorses, we'll dive in. We'll have Cheryl here, and like I said, Dan and Ray, and we can dive into, well, what do you do if they're pelagic? What do you do? What kind of contain? All that stuff we're going to dive into. So we're just touching on it because we've done it, just, maybe not commercially or whatever. Anyhow, go ahead, Holly. Were you going to say something?
Yeah. So I noticed Bonnie was saying, the fry would be in an inadequate volume of water due to parameters going off the charts, or water changes would be constant, I would think. They are constant. The fry raising,
If you
there's a
right,
lot of water changes if you're doing them in a small container like I was in a 10-gallon. I did water changes pretty much every day.
yep.
And but that's in an alternate to keeping them in a bigger water volume, which I didn't have the capability to do, like a fry tub or something. But yeah, there's a lot of cleaning involved, water changes, sterilizing, equipment, not just the tank, but your equipment and
Yep.
hatcheries. And it's very, very labor intensive to raise seahorse fry.
That's a good word. Labor intensive
It's
doesn't
labor
mean it's like
intensive.
undoable. You can do it. I
Mhm,
raised 50. Holly's raised multiple
mhm,
batches. Ray has raised, I can't even tell you how many. And Dan, of
mhm,
course, had the commercial tubs. And when I set up my tubs the way that Cheryl recommended, I can't wait till I wish Cheryl was here to talk. She will be
mhm,
for the Fry episode. But when she educated me, and there's a video out there, guys, search on the Seahorse Whisperer channel for breeding with Cheryl, I think I called it, or seahorse breeding. But she goes through how she set up her fry tubs. And when I followed those instructions and set up the fry tubs, it did become a lot easier. Okay,
mhm.
because I had the space like Holly didn't
Yeah.
to set up 2 fry tubs with a huge sump. So the sump was the main thing, right? It was this huge sump
Mhm,
underneath, and then two 20-gallon fry tubs. I still, and this is something I'd like to just, kind of say and point out. We say you need to do so many water changes, or yeah, with that small volume of water, you're doing huge water changes every day. But in the fry tubs, if there was excess food,
mhm,
I was sucking it out anyways. So you're
mhm,
kind of constantly doing water changes, if that makes sense. I
mhm.
mean, like it's not it's labor intensive, as Holly said. But it can become easier if you set up bigger and if you're able to set up bigger. But I mean, Holly did just fine with smaller tanks. It is
And
more
it's
labor
not a
intensive.
lot of water to change when you're doing smaller tanks. It's
Right,
nothing
right,
compared to your display tank.
right.
It's just like doing the hospital tank. Like if you're running a hospital tank, or then there's water changes with that. So it really wasn't that bad. But you have to feed them often, and hatching brine shrimp, and
Yep.
yeah. So it turns out, I figured out because I raised a few out of several batches, like 5 batches, I think I had altogether. But you get more used to it,
Yes.
and you get into routine as you do more and more. You learn shortcuts and things like that. But one of the things I liked about the 10-gallon was when cleaning, I kept 2 10-gallon tanks. So I had a shelf long enough that 2 tanks would fit. So when I had to change, I set up the new 10-gallon tank, put the fresh, clean water in, and just moved the baby seahorses over to that tank, and
Yep.
then take the other 10-gallon and run it through, bleach in the shower and
Yep.
all the disinfecting. And then it becomes the next one for when I need to
That's
move
what
them
Lucy
in it.
used to do. Lucy's whole,
Mhm,
and Lucy was very successful with Seahorse Fry. And
mhm,
that's what she did. She just swapped out whatever container she was using. I mean, it's a good plan if you're a hobbyist
mhm.
breeder. So I'm glad you brought that up. Um, Bonnie said, I heard dwarf fry are larger than the bigger species fry. And Ray, you said a touch so. I have never kept dwarfs. So really?
Yeah, they're a little bit bigger, probably
So those
pretty
teeny
close.
tiny dwarf seahorses are able
Yeah,
to have bigger fry than the
yeah.
big
Than the
seahorse.
erectus.
You can
How?
lead them right in the tank with the adult dwarfs, and they just
Yeah,
feed
they
the
live
same.
together.
So they're born almost as big as their papa?
And especially they're bigger than a lot of large seahorse fry. If Cheryl was here now, she would tell you the size of some of the larger species. Their fry size is proportionally smaller than other smaller seahorses, like red eye um, have smaller ones, but they're pelagic. The erectus are benthic, and they're a little bit bigger. But then you get seahorses that are bigger than the erectus, and they can have smaller fry than what the erectus have, even though they may be half again as big.
And that is so crazy because I'm thinking about every batch of seahorses or seahorse fry that have ever come into my home. And Holly, I'm sure you feel the same. They're so tiny. They're so
Picnic
little and
and
delicate looking. I can't
yeah.
imagine them being littler. Oh my gosh, that would just be crazy to me. I want to do it. Yeah, but isn't that crazy?
Just think of
Because
the satisfaction you get when you're selling them.
right.
You
No,
can
no,
sit
no.
there and say, I did this.
The satisfaction of watching them grow too
Yep.
and take frozen foods and oh my gosh, it's
I
amazing
must
and
see
watching
if
their
I can find a
personalities develop.
picture. I have a picture of a fry that's not living, one of the ones that didn't make it, and it's
Yeah.
sitting on a fingernail. I'm gonna look for it and see if I can show you guys
Okay, and I've got
while we're
pictures if I
talking.
need to share. um Telling Zen to finally get her salty. Hello, Kelly. We are absolutely telling Zenny to get her salty tank going. We need her to keep seahorses. She's going to be amazing. She's going to end up our next commercial breeder. Watch. And Vince said rotifers and green water was what you used with red eye. Isn't that what you did, Ray?
What was that?
Rotifers and green water with the red
Yep.
eye fry.
Um,
Yep.
I kept the green water right in the hatching or right in the rearing containers. So it was doing two things. The green water was live, and ammonia that's produced by the fry in there would be used as food for the green water. In my case, it was nano, but also it was something you put the rotifers in there, and I didn't have to worry about them losing all their nutrition because they were
Yep.
feeding on the nano at the same time. When I first did it, I was just using the green water, the nanochloropsis, but uh, after that, it got to the point I was putting in some um, Schizochytrium algae. It wasn't live, but it would stay in circulation most of the time anyway. And that meant that then they were getting the DHA that they needed.
So
The uh,
big.
the nano
Sorry, go
doesn't
ahead.
require DHA.
Right. Yeah. If you need more info on that, let us know because Nano doesn't cover it, right? It can
Yeah,
work, but not well, right? We want to give them DHA.
you need a
But
mix of 3 or 4 different
yes,
microalgae to be able to supply all the things that are really needed. But
absolutely
back
agree.
then, like this is a couple decades ago,
Right.
and we didn't know a lot of the things that we know now.
Sure.
And so once I found out it needed the DHA, and I think I was talking to Dan somehow, and that triggered me to do some searching, and then I found the company that makes the Algamac, and so I bought that and started using that in all my adding it in with the live nano, but also when I was using the paste, I would mix it in with the paste as well to boost the nutrition level of it. The nutrition level was pretty good anyway. I bought a blend from that I was using from Brian brine shrimp
Shrimp
direct.
rack. Yeah.
It was called Tahitian blend,
Yep.
but I still boosted the DHA with the Algamac.
Well, and we're going to dive into this much more deeply, guys. If you have questions, ask them, and we'll do a whole show on it, like I promised. And yeah, feeding is like the key to success or not when it comes to raising fry. And it does depend on the species and all of what we've discussed, but it can get deep. I mean, it's a full episode, right? To dive into that. But I mean, Ray, you figured it out. And that's why I appreciate so much that people like you and Cheryl come and share what you've been through. And sometimes when you say, hey guys, this isn't going to work, it seems like, oh, he's so strict or whatever, but it's because you've had decades of experience and you've lived through it and you're trying to help people. So we just
No, I
appreciate you
wouldn't have
guys.
been able to raise the ones I
Right.
did without these guys here.
The
And I
Exactly.
advantage that I
that
had, though, the advantage I had were the Seahorse forums, far
Right.
better than social media. These
It's true.
forums there were so well looked after. And while at first we were putting up information that we found out later wasn't correct anymore, still the stuff was sitting there. Someone new could go in there. We could tell them, look, do a search here on the forum, and you'll get all these threads pop up. You can go through those threads and read it, and you can understand it. And so we were feeding off one another. We were putting up stuff there, and it wasn't gone in a day like it's gone off your Facebook page. It's gone down so far you don't see it anymore. There, you can sit there, and um, the topics were broken out into specific sections.
Categories. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you wanted to know how to do the green water, or how to raise the copepods, or how to raise the fry, uh, or the dwarf seahorses had a separate section. Like there were so many different aspects of it for diseases. Um,
Hmm.
and
Ray, I completely agree with you 110%. I just don't think we've had this. We've Dan says the same thing. I say the same thing. I got help on forums. I don't think that the younger generation is going to convert back. I just don't think
no,
it's going to happen, unfortunately. I
yeah,
know that was an advantage for us, and it's a disadvantage now. It gets really frustrating.
I really
I
believe that we wouldn't have advanced as far as we had if we didn't have those forums in. If we depended on social
true.
media back 20 years ago, we wouldn't have progressed near as fast.
True, but everything has give and take. I agree with what you just said 100%. But how many people are trying new things because they have the basic knowledge, but they haven't seen where somebody says you can't do it this way because it has to be done this way, and they try something new and it works. And then we figure out, oh shit, you can do that because we didn't know you could do that because nobody tried it. So I think there's give and take in every situation. I miss the forums too. It's what saved and helped me. But and it does get frustrating. We've all talked about, we welcome any question. We'll have a show on setting up a seahorse tank 500 times because even on YouTube, they took out the search. So you go to the Seahorse Whisperer page, you look for the time that I had Dan as a speaker, and he went through the exact steps to set up a seahorse fry tank or a seahorse tank, and you can't find it. So if you ask the question, we love the question. We're going to talk about it, but it does, sometimes get frustrating. You get the same messages over and over and over. You see the same problems posted over and over and over. But that's just where we are today. I don't know what else to say about it because nobody's going to go back to forums, and frankly, nobody's willing to run them. Here I am saying this, and I've been promising you guys a website for how long, and I still don't have it done because there's all this behind the scenes work that has to happen and financial stuff that has to happen to keep up a website, right? So Uh-oh, Ray left. He's mad.
I'm
But
there.
no, I know you are. I'm just teasing. But I'm just saying, I miss the forums too. I'm not sure we could get the new younger generation, not maybe our clientele right here, not clientele, our friends right here to that they're probably not the younger generation, but I don't think the younger generation is going to go back to forums. It takes too long. They have instant, they can just ask a question on social media, good or bad. We're still there, thank God. I mean, Ray, you don't like it, but you're there to answer questions, which is helpful and thankful. And even though it's frustrating, I don't know. Aside from trying to finish my website, I don't know what else to say because, like, Dan's website's even going down. Alyssa's website is great. There are still websites out there. It's just people want instant information these days. And Bonnie, you said you have 2 books written by Mike French. He's great. He has some ideas that are different than some other people. I mean that's the other thing. You're going to
I
find
use
differing
that
opinions.
too. I have one. That's what I used also. One of his
Yeah,
books.
see?
Well,
So
part of the
the
reason
books are
why
good
it's
too.
different ideas is they're older ideas. Like his books aren't something that's recent. So someone that if he was to write those books today, he would write different than what he did in those books.
Mhm.
Yes, true. And that's the problem with like forums or websites. You put up information, you learn something different, and you're like, there's videos that I have on YouTube that I would so take down if they weren't still making money. That's terrible to say. But I mean, the information's not bad,
Yeah.
but I would change it, and I need to make a new video because I don't maybe feel the same way as I did back then, right? So it's just hard to have an everlasting, and Dan said that too. I asked him when I first started coming up with this stuff. I was like, I need you to help me come up with not a medicine, what's it called? Like a kitchen cabinet. I can't think of the word. A medicine cabinet, right? For seahorses. What every person should have on hand for if there's a problem. And he said, there's no way. You can't do it because you just don't know. And you don't want people to buy all this crap they don't need. And it's just so, and it'll change because, like, back then we would have said furon 2 and triple sulfa. Now we got to say kanamycin because you can't get those medications anymore. It's just frustrating. But Bonnie said Ginger said everyone uses Discord and specialized rooms on it on their forums now. Just a different format. Yes, I made one. You probably couldn't find it because I had no idea what I was doing. I really tried with Discord. Zen, I'm old. I need your help. I need you to show me how to use Discord. I'm serious because I got on there and for some reason I don't know. Maybe I didn't try hard enough. If anybody's watching this and is like, "Oh, she's such an idiot." Okay, maybe. But I probably didn't try hard enough. So maybe invite me to one of your Discord rooms or such so that you can show me how to use it because I failed. But Holly, go ahead. You were going to say something and share something, I think.
Oh yeah. So I found that picture
Yes.
to share. So that's one of the newborn fry from one of the batches that didn't make it. So to show you how tiny they are, and that one's probably like a little small, to survive, but Scrappy Doo, I want to say, he was born in a batch of just a few. I think there was like 13 of them born in that batch, and he was the only survivor. And he was that small when he was born, and he grew up to be a big seahorse, big healthy seahorse. So that as
Tiny,
tiny as
tiny.
they are, some of them grow big.
Mm-hmm. And more quickly than you think. Ray, I'm going to stop sharing this. Unless were you done, Holly? Yeah. Okay.
No, I just wanted just to show. So they're about picnic ant size or a little bigger when they're born. The erectus are
Yeah. I mean, they're tiny.
not
Ray,
bigger. The
what?
biggest ones I think are the size of my pinky fingernail, probably.
Yeah, I would say I don't think I've ever had one as small as an ant. But
Mhm.
are you saying, Holly, when they have their tails curled up, or when they're elongated?
Yeah, when
That's
they're
the difference.
newborn, just they're really small, like the size of like a comma. All mine were pretty tiny when they were born. I'd say, yeah, about the size of an ant. We do have bigger ants here than some places, I will
Ah,
say.
see, there you
So,
go.
but
Right.
you could see it like that one. I want to say it was on, I think that's on, yeah, so that's on my thumbnail looking at it. So
Okay.
he's about half the length of my thumbnail, which would be maybe between a quarter and half an inch.
No, no, no. That
Something like
makes more
that.
sense. I thought that was a pinky nail, and that's why I was confused because I have a video
Mhm,
where I put my thumb up
mhm.
against the tank, and you can see how small the fry are. So I'm
Yeah,
with you. I'm with you.
yeah, that was my thumbnail. But I'd say, yeah, looking at my pinky nail, they would be the size of my whole pinky nail.
Right, right. So that was my confusion. But yeah, they're tiny, and luckily Erectus will eat baby brine shrimp. But if you're dealing with different species, then you got to go deeper for sure. And we have to do the whole episode to cover that. But Ray, you said about the what's it called? Gosh, I can't even think now. What's it called? Discord. You said they still don't have a searchable database. I think they
Right.
do. Have you played with Discord at all?
No, just when you were using it briefly, and I did some mucking around then, and
It
um,
didn't go well, but that was probably me. I mean,
well, it was also me because at my age it's difficult to understand that stuff. But I don't have any trouble understanding the forums.
right.
But
Well,
this thing,
so
this thing was difficult. Now, mind you, um, if they do have a database, they certainly didn't advertise it. And when I was doing all my searching, I found nothing about anything that you could use a search feature in the
yeah,
rooms.
I'm curious. Zen, why don't you get with me on the side? Because I'd like to learn more about Discord. I know that's where everybody's at now. And I do think it works like a forum. We old people just don't know how to use it. So get with me on the side, and then I can, easily show Ray once I figure it out. But you want the experts over there. And I'm not saying I am, but like Ray and Cheryl, you want the experts over there to give good information, but we got to figure out how to use it, right? And he's right. Like if you do a search on Google, you won't get a Discord room. You have to be within Discord to go there, right? So um maybe we could talk in the future about possibly, how to expand that to the rest of the world. I don't know. But you get my point. Get with me on the sides then, because I don't want to be the old lady. I want to learn how to use it. And I do have an actual room and all that. I just don't use it because I don't know how. So come teach me. And Cora Works said, and I know there are forum based searches on there. But you know what? Actually, last thing about that. When I got in there, part of my confusion was trying to find the subject that I wanted. Like, I just need to understand the entire organizational structure because Ray's right. It's not like a forum. It's just not. I'm sorry. But Cora Work said, do y'all use Chrysal systems for Seahorse Fry? We are going to do a complete episode on Seahorse Fry, but we will answer all questions that you ask. I was learning about that for Sexy Shrimp earlier this week. Anybody use Chrysal systems for Seahorse Fry?
20 years ago.
Okay. And why did you? Why do you not now?
Well, I didn't, but it was the recommended the way to do it when I first started investigating, and that would be a little over 20 years ago. But there was already at that time some changing information that the creasels weren't a good way to do it for large numbers. It was okay, it worked out okay for the small batches, but it was still a bit problematic. And I never ever did use one myself, but in talking with other people on the forums, then like the forerunner to seahorse.org, I forget what it was called now, but um, when I was talking with people on that one, they were getting out of the creasel, and I can't entirely remember now what the main reason was. It's just that they found then that using larger containers and so the fry would be in the whole container by themselves. It wouldn't be in a creasel that was sitting in another container.
So I guess I'm confused. Sorry, nothing new. But I thought the creasel was where it just moved in a circle like
Yeah.
this. That's not it? You're saying it was in
Well,
another
yeah.
container?
Well, the creasel usually you sat it in another container because you would have, uh, say, a mesh on two sides of this container here, so you would also get water changing in the. You would have the advantage of a container like a tank, set the whole creasel in a tank, and you would have the advantage of all that water. But the creasel was like a goldfish bowl with flat sides on it and with curves to it so that you could put an airline in it and the air would make the circulation start within there. But by having the sides cut out of it and having mesh in it and having it in the larger container, you had the advantage of the larger water volume,
Got it.
not just what would sit in that creasel itself.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I wasn't into seahorses 20 years ago. I admit it, but I think the reason they thought that was the way to do it is because they didn't know the difference, like possibly between benthic and pelagic fry, and also because they were worried about seahorses snicking air at the top, right?
That's
And
that's the main reason there. When they were losing seahorse fry so fast, they didn't understand that they had parasites and and they were going to the surface there and they thought they were sucking air and dying.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
the parasites that were killing them off.
right.
It had nothing to do with air. But
So I guess if you're asking if did you say creasel or kreisel? How do you pronounce it?
well, I've heard people say it both ways,
Okay.
and
Well,
I guess if I wanted to know maybe a proper pronunciation, I would put it on Google and ask them how to
right,
pronounce it.
I
right.
was gonna say I could Google it.
Google it, Holly. But I would say to answer the question, Coro, if you want to try that method, feel free. But in the adaptions and the knowledge that we've gained in multiple years, the best method that's come out of everything, if you're trying to breed seahorses on a larger scale, is the tubs, and
Yeah,
they go like this instead of like this, right? So we're not worried about the surface air. We're worried about keeping the gunk from collecting is the main key. And that's in any seahorse tank. You don't do it like this in the regular, but you kind of do. You set up your flow to where you're making sure you're hitting every area so that it doesn't collect. But good night, Vincent. See you next week. And I'm going to hit you up on the side because I want you here for the fry episode too, because you've done things differently than others and you've been extremely successful. We want all people to share their opinions and thoughts, and we appreciate that you came. But anyways, and he said he made many Kreisel tanks, and said it's like a jellyfish tank, and he made them on fish bowls.
yep.
And so, that's the way it used to be done. You can, if you want, but it's not necessary. And I think maybe they figured out that, like, depending on the species, if you're dealing with erectus, they don't want to be shoved off their hitches, right? It's better to have flow like this that's just moving stuff, but not puttering them around upside down, because erectus hitch from birth, right? I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look into it. I never did that kind of tank.
I don't know if it's a case of what they like or don't like. You do what makes them
Works,
survive. And
right?
for me, my very first ones I started were in a tank, excuse me, in a small tank, and I didn't have much luck then. So then I collected a 12 4-liter jars, which would be a little bigger than a U.S. gallon. And so I was raising them in that until they got a little bit bigger, and then I transferred them to a tank, because then they would have another batch that would have to split up and put into the jars. But I would have those jars. I would have to change the water out every other day. And
Yep.
so the 12 jars, basically, I would do 6 jars one night, and then the next night I'd do the other 6.
And
So
how many
every
how
night
many fry in each jar, Ray?
I'd start out with 1 or 200, and then get down to about 50. And uh, at
Wait, do you
50,
mean get down to 50, meaning you lost them?
well, I would start off, say, with a couple. It depended, like the reed eye, I'd get 600 or 800 fry at a time.
Right.
Okay. And when you first start off, the high density is okay because they're all small. And so I could put a couple hundred in a jar. As they got bigger, then I would have to take some out, put them in other jars. And so then I would end up with 12 jars on the go, and down to about 50 a jar. And there were there were times when I didn't have as big a hatch, and I could keep them in and split them up to 25 a jar, and they would grow faster at that point. But it was
Mm-hmm.
easier for me at that 50 to 25 to a jar. Once they were at that size and they're eating the frozen food, then I put them in a tank.
Yeah.
Then with Dan's uh, experimenting and found with the tubs, then I went to tubs also, but mine weren't the size his were. Mine were only what were they? 17 gallons, I think they were.
Yeah, mine were only 20. And it's more about, the filtration and figuring it out. But when you were using the jars, because if a hobbyist is trying to do this, you can still do it. There's nothing wrong with trying to do it and succeeding on a smaller scale. But like, what was the indicator for you that it was time to split them up more? What
When
I
it,
understand you.
well,
I
when I had
understand.
to take them out of the jars and
Yeah, I
put them in the
understand. You
tanks
said when
because
they.
I had new batch to put in.
So it wasn't.
There's
Well,
more
well,
coming.
well. Wait a minute. You did say when they started eating frozen foods, because when they start eating frozen foods, they all of a sudden get big really quick, and you better have something ready.
The growth rate is
But
faster then, yeah.
but when I was doing smaller tanks for fry, I would notice that it's a certain. I wasn't paying that much attention, but I just can remember I would notice at a certain point that all of a sudden I'd start losing a few. And so I knew it was time that they needed more water volume. Did you just know ahead of time, or
Uh, Trying to remember everything
remember
back
that
to
long
that
ago?
far.
I
Like
know.
you look from 20 odd years ago, 20 years ago, and it's hard to remember everything, especially when I have cognitive impairment, but makes it worse. But it was it was just a learning process. Like if you had
Sure.
problems, if you left them too long in the container without splitting them up and started losing them, then you learn from that. You knew then that, hey, next time I better get them out of there and thin it out a little bit faster.
That's an honest answer,
I think
Ray.
for me, it just started getting dirtier faster.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, see, for
And
me,
my first batch, they grew up in a 3-gallon
See,
I was
until
doing
until
100%
I
water changes.
started feeding them frozen, and then they moved to I had a 12-gallon acrylic octagon shaped tank, and they moved to that, but I didn't fill it all the way. I had about 8 gallons in it because there was only 5 of them. Remember, in the first
right.
batch I
So that
raised,
wait,
there
wait,
was
wait, wait.
5.
But wait, before you go on, I just want to clarify, and I know Ray, you're trying to say something else too. But in Holly's situation, she's talking about 5 seahorse fry,
Yes.
or however many. Ray's talking about hundreds, so different situation. But go ahead, Holly.
But the 12-gallon got too small for the 5
Right.
very quickly. And
Yep.
I had them in a 29-gallon, but I didn't have a sump. I didn't have a canister. I had like the freshwater style filtration built in the hood. So I had to do water changes in the 29-gallon every other day,
Yep.
and
I did them
that's
every
until
day on my smaller tanks.
I got the grow out tank
Yep.
going, which
I,
was a
I would
big
say
80-gallon tank.
I would say, guys, we're sharing our past experiences. Mac, we're not talking about if a jar goes faster in a tank. We're talking about the Kreisel or Kreisel,
It's
however you say it,
Kreisel. I checked it. It's
Kreisel
Kreisel. It's
system.
German. The word is German.
Yes.
It's Kreisel.
Okay.
Pronounced.
Whether that system works for Seahorse Fry. And it
You got to
has
remember
in the
too
past.
that when I was
What?
doing this, there were hardly anybody around that was successfully raising fry anyway. So you
Right.
didn't
Yeah.
have someone that could help you out and
Yeah.
tell you do this or do that or don't do this. It was a case of just you had to learn by the seat of your pants type of thing.
Right. And you guys are amazing for doing that. All I was trying to say is we're going to do a full episode on Fry when I can get Dan and Cheryl in here and Ray and to talk about this and all of our different experiences. Right now, we're just sharing because someone asked a question about a Kreisel tank. And, that's not the way people do it now. We're talking about the reasons why and just what's worked for us. But it does always depend on what species you're dealing with, how many fry they have. I mean, there's so many parts to the equation. It's really hard to give just an answer,
Mm.
So I don't know. But I saw Danielle left too. I will hit you up on the side. And guys, I swore we'd be done in an hour, and now it's an hour and a half. Some are still using the Kreisel, right?
I've seen the odd post here or there where somebody has been using it.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying it won't work, right? It worked for you.
But if you only have a few, then and if
Do
you're
what you
just
want to do.
learning, it's a good way to learn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes you come on here, not you, people come in the comment section, and then, we'll have, our experts say, oh, you don't want to do it this way, and this is why. And this is the best way, and this is, why and how and etc. But if you're just experimenting at home, me and Holly have done some crazy stuff. You wouldn't
Oh
believe
yeah.
it. And
Now
it's
mine
worked out,
start out
right?
in fish bowls. And to me, the only way I judge it is by how many of them they are, the size they are,
Right.
and how do they look? Do they look crowded in the container? Then I need a bigger one.
Yeah. Do you
Do
see
I have
some
to
not
change?
eating? Right.
Does
Right.
the ammonia build up super fast? Then I better put it
Exactly.
in something bigger.
Well, and that's what we need to do an article on. Not like some article that says this is how you raise seahorses. That's not it. It's more like here's the things to look at to determine if you need to change the way you're raising seahorses, right? I mean,
Yes.
that'd be a better article. But Ray,
I
just
mean, to
appreciate
me, the
all your input, and
reality
Holly.
is I could have done it probably in a bucket or two.
Right. You
You
can. I
know,
mean,
if
yeah.
you keep their water, if you give them what they need as
Right.
far as cleanliness and nutrition and prevent them from getting sick. I think what they're in doesn't matter so much as long as you're able to upkeep it.
That's absolutely correct. And I would say, I kind of want to try some of the old school ways. I've always wanted to do a Seahorse fry tank with the food and the Fido in the tank. I've always
Mhm.
been terrified to do it because I'm afraid I
Mhm.
wouldn't be able to control ammonia or whatever. I'd do something wrong. But I think it's incredible that you guys did it that way and successfully for so long. I think that'd be so cool. So, you know, if
Mhm.
you try it and succeed, come back and share with us for sure. I did promise this was going to be a 1 hour show, and we're pushing 1.5 hours. So I am going to have to end it for tonight. But was there anything else you wanted to share, Holly or Ray, before I?
No, I just had
Okay.
one more comment. I think the
Okay.
one thing I like about raising them in actual tanks instead of the fry tubs is being able to see them and
Mm,
enjoy them more, take pictures and video and stuff like that. Because I would think I have a fry tub I never set up. I got the tub and then I never had more fry, so I never built it. But one of the things I thought about it after I got it was you can only see them from the top.
yeah.
So if I wanted to take pictures of them, or I'd have to scoop them out and put them in a fishbowl or something to get good pictures or videos of them if I wanted to.
Well, I will say I got
Where
some
was that
pretty
too?
cool ass pictures from a Seahorse fry tub. I got to find them. I always say that and then I forget. Somebody remind me to find them. I'll share them next week or try to post them in the group. But I got some pretty cool pictures. But it was when the fry was a bit bigger in a fry tub where
Yeah.
they're up at the top and I can get them in an ankle and they're
Yeah.
pretty cool. But you're right, Holly, as little babies, it would be very difficult. So I would say it depends on what you're trying to do, right?
Mm.
If you're just a hobbyist and your Seahorse has fry and you think it's amazing and you want to raise them, we're here to help you. If you want to do it in a tank where you can take pictures and so show that they're adorable, we're going to help you. If you want to raise them large scale and sell them or whatnot, we're here to help you. Just depends on what you need, what your seahorses need, and we're here for all of it, right? That's the point, I think. And good point, Holly. Thank you for making it, because it depends on what you want, right? And what you're after. But
I
for
think the
tonight,
biggest
guys, go ahead.
advantage that I had was Dan Underwood. We
Oh yeah.
started at the same time basically, but he got into it in a much bigger way, much faster than I ever did.
Sure.
But the thing was, there isn't anybody in the hobby that contributed as much so willingly as what Dan did. And
Amen.
he was doing it for a business, but it didn't matter. He would help you out even though you weren't going to buy from him. I couldn't buy seahorses from Dan because he didn't ship to Canada.
Yep.
And yet there was something to come up one time, and I don't remember what it was now because it's so many years ago. But uh, Dan actually called me long distance. I'm up here in Canada. He called me on his dime, and we talked for a
Yep.
hell of a long time on the phone discussing whatever it was at that time. And he had no expectation to get anything back. There was no way
Mhm.
I was
That's
going to
right.
be able to, buy something from him. He just did it because that was Dan.
Mhm. Just to
I
help. Yeah, he's
absolutely
awesome.
agree. All of us would be nowhere without Dan for sure. Well, I shouldn't say nowhere, but we all benefited from Dan, and we need to get him back. He's busy, guys, but I need to get him back in here, and we need more Dans, right? We need any of you guys in the comments that have the time and the ability to really dive into this stuff. Dan had a paramedic background. He had a brilliant, no, I shouldn't keep saying had, I'm sorry, has a brilliant mind. And he did so many things to expand the keeping of seahorses. It's
Mhm.
incredible. I can't praise him enough. He's my mentor for sure.
Mhm.
And I need to get him back in here so we can all say this to his face for sure. I will. I'm going to do that as soon as we're done. I'm going to text him and be like, we need you in here to tell you something, just so we
Yeah.
can all be like, you're freaking amazing. But I agree with you, Ray. Absolutely. But now
Mhm.
you're doing the same thing, you know. I mean, you didn't do as much or the way that he did things, but
I still don't
you're
have the
helping.
knowledge base that he has.
Right,
He did so
right.
much studying on it. No, and it's like anything. We
He
don't agree
actually
on everything 100%.
participated.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we don't
he
agree on
actually.
everything. But
Sorry, go ahead.
the thing is that I don't I don't say he's wrong. I just have a different outlook on some things.
I
Uh,
think it's great when you guys debate because so much comes from it, right? You guys try different things, we figure out different things. I think if you don't question status quo or even the best, then you're not doing your job. So I think that's good that you're still questioning and that sometimes you have a difference of opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. But he actually participated in literal scientific studies on seahorses. So you're
yeah,
right. He knows his shit stuff, excuse me. But I mean, your experience is different than his. I mean, and it different species, different situations. That's the problem with like that's my problem trying to set up this darn website is there's not a one fits all answer. It really does depend on so many things. And we appreciate you all, Ray. We appreciate you too. You know, like Dan's amazing and he helped us all, but you're still helping us. So we appreciate you too.
well,
Ray
thank you
nodded.
all.
Okay.
So I'll hit the road too, and we'll see
All
you
right.
again next week.
All right, you guys. Happy Wine Wednesday. Everybody say cheers. I'm calling it off.
Cheers.
Good night.
Oh, wait. Zen Ginger said Cora Works is a sciencey one. Cora Works, hit me up on the side. We'll have you on as guest. All right. Cheers.
Yeah.
Good night.